Amidst these arrivals, Ned dispatched a raven to Dragonstone, hoping to draw Stannis Baratheon himself to the city. Whether the message would be answered or not remained uncertain. Stannis was known to be slow to trust, a man of grim determination who might see treachery in any attempt to gather him in the capital. For his part, Renly sometimes disappeared for hours on end, presumably conferring with lords who might bolster his own ambition if the city's mood swung in his favor. The atmosphere in the Red Keep grew thick with tension, a tinderbox waiting for a single spark. Each lord had his own agenda. Each retinue contained those who favored the Lannisters and those who opposed them, and each day brought fresh rumors. But Ned pressed on, preparing for what he intended to be a fair hearing, one that would see the truth of Joffrey's parentage laid bare for all to witness. On the day the hearing was to commence, the skies remained overcast. Dull sunlight filtered through the high windows of the throne room, illuminating swirling motes of dust in the air. The Iron Throne itself loomed at the far end of the hall, a twisted mass of swords hammered into a seat. Joffrey had not taken it officially, for the hearing was said to be overseen by the Protector of the Realm. Ned Stark stood near the throne, his posture rigid. Renly hovered at his side, dressed in fine green velvet, his expression poised. The lords gathered below in a semicircle, flanked by their retinues. Mace Tyrell, broad-faced and beaming, had found a place of prominence. The Dornish stood off to one side, eyeing the Lannister men with thinly veiled disdain. The Vale's representatives stood quietly near the back, their gaze flickering from face to face, and scattered among them all were men wearing the gold cloak of the City Watch, unobtrusive yet watchful. Cersei entered with Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen. Her gown of crimson and gold shimmered in the torchlight. She held her head high, though even from across the throne room Ned could see the tension in her posture. Joffrey looked sullen, uncertain, as though he could sense that this day might end badly for him. For a moment, Ned felt a pang of pity for the boy, whatever his parentage. He had grown up believing he was the trueborn son of Robert Baratheon. But pity would not negate the need for truth. Standing near the dais were Ser Barristan Selmy and 2 other Kingsguard knights, silent and formidable. Their white cloaks added a stark contrast to the gloom around them. Varys was nowhere to be seen, likely lurking in the wings. Littlefinger stood by the edge of the crowd, face unreadable, hands folded in front of him. When the murmuring of the assembled nobles died down, Eddard Stark stepped forward. His voice carried the ring of the North's harsh clarity. "Lords and ladies, we have convened at the behest of the realm to discuss the matter of succession following King Robert's untimely passing. I stand before you as his named protector of the realm, a role assigned to me by the king himself on his deathbed." He took a deep breath, scanning the crowd. "In my hand is the royal decree bearing Robert's seal, granting me authority until Joffrey Baratheon comes of age, or until truth deems otherwise." He looked at Joffrey, who flinched under the direct scrutiny. "I know this is a difficult time," Ned continued. "We all grieve for our king, yet questions have arisen regarding the rightful heir. I have called you here to witness an impartial hearing of those questions." Mace Tyrell cleared his throat loudly. "Let us be clear, Lord Stark. We have come a great distance for this. Are you suggesting that Prince Joffrey is not our lawful king?" Ned raised his voice so it would carry. "I am suggesting we examine the evidence carefully before we proclaim a new king." He nodded to Peter Baelish, who stepped forward holding a few parchments. These contained genealogies and records, evidence Ned had compiled through the royal lineages, proving that Joffrey's features did not match those of House Baratheon. On separate parchments, there were accounts from Master of Arms men who had noted that every Baratheon child in recorded history had certain traits of black hair and strong builds. Cersei arched a brow. "This is tedious. Do you truly expect us to believe you have the right to question the blood of my children, the children of King Robert?" Renly cleared his throat, stepping forth with surprising boldness. "My queen, if you are certain of Prince Joffrey's parentage, then let these lords see the evidence. Should it be in his favor, we can settle this quickly. If, however, the boy lacks Baratheon blood, the realm must know." The tension in the hall rose palpably, as though every man and woman present held their breath. Joffrey stood stiffly beside his mother, glancing from face to face, likely confused and outraged. It was Tommen who clutched Myrcella's hand, the two younger siblings sensing the hostility. Ned began reading from the parchment Peter had given him, voice steady. He outlined the lineage of House Baratheon, describing the traits of its scions, how Robert, Stannis, and Renly all shared certain genetic features that had repeated for centuries. Then he explained how Joffrey's golden hair matched that of the Lannisters, how none of the Baratheon traits were present in him, and how repeated references in the lineages suggested that a trueborn Baratheon from Robert's line would display those traits. All the while, Cersei stood rigid, her gaze fixed ahead. The lords muttered among themselves. When Ned finished, he turned to the queen. "You stand accused of presenting children not fathered by the king as his rightful heirs. If these accusations are false, we will all be relieved. Yet the evidence suggests otherwise." Cersei's lip curled. "This is an insult to the memory of my late husband." Ned did not flinch. "It is the pursuit of truth. My lords, I ask you to consider what I have presented. Should we all desire further evidence, we can question members of the Kingsguard or examine the record of births at the Great September. We might also question the Queen's household staff. I do not make this accusation lightly." Silence followed his words. Then a voice broke it, a Dornishman, tall and gaunt, his head shaved except for a short black beard. "What does your evidence imply for the lineage of Princess Myrcella and Prince Tommen, if Prince Joffrey is proven illegitimate as well?" Ned exhaled. "I fear the implications are the same. If Joffrey is not Robert's son, it would stand to reason Myrcella and Tommen are not either." A heavy ripple of murmurs washed through the throne room. Mace Tyrell shifted uncomfortably. The Vale's men exchanged guarded glances. On the dais, Cersei's face was stony, and her knuckles whitened around Joffrey's arm. The young prince, for his part, looked on the verge of tantrum or tears, uncertain which was more fitting for a supposed king. Renly stepped forward again, his tone gentler this time. "Cersei, I entreat you. If there is some misunderstanding, speak plainly. The realm does not desire a war over a lie." Cersei drew herself up. "I will not stand here and watch you vultures tear apart my son's claim. My husband is dead, and Joffrey is his heir. If you goad me further, Lord Stark, you will rue the day you came south." Ned's heart pounded in his chest. He could see how precarious the situation was. Any misstep here could send the hall into chaos. The city watch might hold the advantage, but if a sudden fight broke out, how many of these lords would side with him or with Cersei? At that moment, a figure in white armor stepped forward. Ser Barristan Selmy cleared his throat. He knelt briefly before Ned, then rose, turning to face the assembly. "My lords, as a Kingsguard, I have sworn to protect the royal family. But my highest oath is to the king himself and to the realm. I served King Robert faithfully. I stand ready to bear witness if called upon, though I pray we settle this without blood." The old knight's words carried weight, for his honor was unquestioned. His presence alone forced many in the crowd to reconsider their stance. With Barristan's unspoken endorsement of the investigation, it became harder to dismiss Ned's claims as mere northern intransigence. Into that tense stillness, Varys glided out from behind a column, seeming to materialize from the shadows. "My lords," he said softly, "might it be prudent to allow a short recess, that certain parties may consider the facts and weigh their responses? The hour grows late, and it would be wiser to continue deliberations when tempers are not so heated." Ned hesitated. He did not trust the abrupt suggestion, yet Varys's cunning was often a bomb on fractious gatherings. More important, if Cersei was on the brink of doing something rash, a recess might avert immediate violence. Ned glanced at Renly, who gave a slight nod. Then he cleared his throat. "Very well. We will break for the evening. We reconvene on the morrow to continue examining these questions. I ask all parties to remain in King's Landing until this matter is resolved. Let no man or woman depart these walls without leave." Cersei's stare could have turned men to stone. She said nothing, merely spinning on her heel to escort her children from the throne room. The lords drifted out after them, some in silent shock, others debating in hushed tones. Ned watched them go, a cold sense of uncertainty swirling in his gut. He had presented the case, but whether it would hold the realm together or tear it apart remained to be seen. That night, Ned received word from the city watch that Cersei's retinue had doubled the guards outside Maegor's holdfast. Tension simmered in the Red Keep's corridors, and even the servants tread carefully, not wishing to stir conflict. In his solar, Ned met with Renly once more. The younger Baratheon paced by the table, his expression tight with anxiety. "She's cornered," Renly muttered. "And a cornered lioness is the most dangerous. I don't like it. Stannis still hasn't arrived, nor has he answered your summons." "Correct." Ned shook his head. "No word yet. Stannis might be preparing his own forces. He might also be staying away, waiting to see who emerges victorious." Renly scoffed. "That sounds like him, but there's a different matter. Mace Tyrell approached me in private after the hearing. He said that if I declare for Joffrey, the Tyrells would secure a match between Joffrey and Margaery. If I declare for you, they might consider a match between Margaery and me instead. He's fishing for the best arrangement, hoping to keep the Tyrell name in a place of power. I told him we'd need time to consider, but it shows me how precarious our alliances are. Everyone is waiting to see who comes out on top." Ned frowned. "It's no surprise that the Tyrells are hedging. They have always been mindful of alliances, but we cannot let them manipulate the truth for their own gain." Renly halted, crossing his arms. "Nevertheless, it means we have a narrow window. If Cersei acts first, if she tries to turn the tide in her favor with bribes or threats, the Tyrells might side with her, especially if she offers Joffrey in marriage to Margaery. Then the Lannisters and the Tyrells together could be unstoppable in the capital." Ned rubbed his temples, feeling a dull ache building behind his eyes. "We must keep our guard up. The Gold Cloaks answer to me, for now. Peter says he has them well paid. But coin alone can shift loyalties as easily as the wind changes direction. If Cersei finds a way to outbid us, or to threaten them effectively, we're finished." A soft knock at the door interrupted them. Ser Barristan entered, his white cloak fluttering. He bowed. "My lords, I come to inform you that Lady Cersei requests a private audience with Lord Stark. She says it is a matter of grave importance." Renly tensed. "She means to threaten you directly?" Ned frowned. "Or to offer terms of peace. We cannot know without speaking to her. Ser Barristan, I will see her, but not without witness. I would have you by my side, as well as a few trusted guards from the City Watch. I will meet her in the solar." Barristan nodded. "Very well, my lord." When Cersei arrived, she wore a cloak of deep crimson, her golden hair gleaming even in the low torchlight of Ned's solar. She had come alone, though Ned was certain some of her men lurked nearby in the corridors. Ser Barristan stood discreetly by the window, and 2 gold cloaks stood at the door, their halberds crossed. Cersei seemed to pay them no mind as she entered. Ned rose politely but did not offer a seat. "My queen," he greeted, the formality catching in his throat. "You wish to speak?" Her green eyes flashed. She stepped closer, though not too close. "I have come with an offer, Lord Stark," she said quietly. "I want no bloodshed. I want to keep my children safe. If you truly believe they are not Robert's, then let them go. Let them return to Casterly Rock with me and leave the throne to whomever the lords declare. All I ask is you do not publicly denounce Joffrey's parentage. Do not make him a bastard in the eyes of the realm. Let the matter be settled quietly. We will claim that Joffrey renounces his claim in favor of peace, for the good of the realm. We shall depart, and the crown can pass to Stannis or Renly or even to your own brood if the realm chooses. I do not care. Just spare my children the dishonor and the danger." She spoke with a tremor in her voice, though her eyes remained fierce. Ned glanced sidelong at Barristan, who stood unmoving. "That is a surprising proposal," Ned said slowly. "You would have us lie to the realm, hush up the truth that your children are not Robert's, simply so you can depart gracefully?" Cersei's laugh was sharp and bitter. Yes, is that so shocking, Lord Stark? The truth is a dangerous weapon. If you declare it, many will call for my children's heads, and I know some in this kingdom would happily see them executed as a threat to the true line of succession. My children might be innocent of this deception, but the realm does not care for nuance. Blood alone seems to appease men when treason is declared. I want none of that. I would rather see them exiled than butchered. Ned felt conflicting tides of emotion. Pity for the children, distaste for the lie, frustration at the endless webs of King's Landing. Yet he could not discount that a quiet departure by Cersei and her brood would avert a war. If you truly want peace, you will confess the truth, he said carefully, and we can arrange terms of safe passage. But I will not bury the truth entirely. Too much has been risked already. Cersei's lips quivered with anger. Then you condemn my children to scorn and derision at best. A quiet confession might not placate those who demand retribution. You do not understand how quickly these lords turn monstrous when they smell blood. Ned's resolve hardened. I understand more than you think. But if the realm is to heal, we must start with honesty. She glared at him, her eyes shimmering with furious tears. You are an impossible man, Eddard Stark. You hide your ruthlessness behind that cloak of honor, but it is ruthlessness all the same. She exhaled, gathering herself. So be it. If you refuse my offer of a quiet departure, I will have no choice but to defend my children with every resource House Lannister can muster. Tywin will not take kindly to hearing that you mean to shame his grandchildren. Ned stood firm. I do not relish humiliating them, but I cannot betray Robert's memory by letting the deception persist. Tomorrow, we will reconvene the Council of Lords and see what they decide. Cersei's face twisted, her mouth curling as if tasting something foul. Do not pretend this is mercy. You stand at the brink of a war you may not be able to control. She cast a glance at Barristan. You have chosen your side, Ser Barristan? The old knight inclined his head. I serve the realm, my lady. With a derisive huff, Cersei turned on her heel, sweeping out of the solar. The gold cloaks at the door parted to let her pass. Her footsteps echoed down the corridor. Only after she was gone did Ned let out a long breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Barristan watched him with solemn eyes. That was not an empty threat, the knight said quietly. If you publicly declare her children bastards, House Lannister will answer with steel. Ned nodded. Then let them. The truth must come out, for the good of the realm. Barristan hesitated, seeming to weigh his words. Then may the gods guide us. I fear we stand on a knife's edge. Morning came, gray and damp, as though the city itself lamented the fractures about to be laid bare. The throne room was full once again, lords and ladies arrayed in tense clusters. The dais stood illuminated by torches, the iron throne behind it looming like a dark promise of power. Ned stepped forward with measured steps, Renly at his side. Barristan took up his station beside them, while the city watch lined the hall. Cersei arrived, her expression like stone, with Joffrey trailing behind. The boy's face was pale, his eyes darting around the room in a mixture of fear and indignation. Myrcella and Tommen were absent. Perhaps Cersei had chosen to keep them sequestered from what was to come. Littlefinger slipped into the crowd, giving Ned a faint nod as if encouraging him to proceed. The hush was profound. Ned could almost hear the beating of his own heart. He produced the parchment bearing Robert's final decree and held it aloft. My lords, we are gathered to resolve the question of the Iron Throne. King Robert, in his wisdom, named me protector of the realm on his deathbed, granting me authority until such time as an undisputed heir might be determined. He lowered the parchment, meeting the eyes of the assembled. I have presented evidence suggesting that Joffrey Baratheon is not the trueborn son of King Robert, but rather the product of an incestuous union between Queen Cersei and her brother, Ser Jaime Lannister. If this is true, Joffrey cannot inherit the Iron Throne. Outrage rippled among the crowd. Some looked aghast, others eager for drama, a few muttering curses under their breath. Mace Tyrell made a show of shock, pressing a hand to his ample chest. The Dornish delegates exchanged sharp looks. The Vale men appeared grimly curious. Cersei stepped forward, her chin high. I deny these charges as the vicious slander they are. Lord Stark claims he has proof. I say he has only speculation and prejudice. Ned's jaw tightened. I have genealogical records, physical evidence, and the testimonies of men who have known the Baratheon line. Moreover, I have had multiple confessions from those close to you, my queen. A murmur ran through the crowd at that suggestion. Cersei's glare could have scorched the walls. Lies. Renly took a half-step forward, speaking in a calm tone. My lords, I ask only that you look upon Joffrey. No doubt remains that he carries the features of House Lannister, with no trace of Baratheon heritage. Is it not suspicious that none of Robert's children resemble him in the slightest, despite the inheritance of features being so consistent throughout House Baratheon's history? Joffrey finally found his voice, his tone shrill. I will have your heads for this. I am the king. A hush fell. The boy's outburst seemed more pitiful than regal. His hand hovered near the hilt of a small blade at his waist, but he did not draw it. The city watch watched him impassively.